Vanilla. Why do I know nothing about vanilla? Vanilla beans come from the vanilla orchid, which is native to what is today Mexico. The vanilla orchid produces vines that are up to 35 meters long that grow up the trunks of the trees in the rainforest where it is from. In the flowering season, the vines produce between 20 and 100 flowers, which open up in the morning and, unless they're pollinated, just drop off at the end of the day. The Spanish brought vanilla to Europe, where they discovered that although sometimes it would flower, they just could not produce any pods. That is because, in its natural environments, the vanilla orchid is pollinated by a rare species of bees that simply does not exist anywhere else on Earth. So, just 200 years ago, vanilla only grew in its natural habitat. The vines cultivated by indigenous farmers and the flowers pollinated by bees. Vanilla was a taste and scent that was only known to the richest Europeans. So how did vanilla go from being the perfume of kings to being so ubiquitous that it's the colloquial stand-in for boring? In 1841, Edmond Albius, a 12-year-old slave from the island of Réunion, figured out how to hand-pollinate these orchids. The method he came up with is so ingenious that in the nearly 200 years since, no one has been able to improve on it. To this day, it is the method used to pollinate every single vanilla orchid. Vanilla orchids started springing up all over the world, and it turned into the cash crop it is today. Edmond Albius did not see a penny of those riches. He gained his freedom in 1848 when slavery was abolished, and he died at age 51 in poverty. There is a statue remembering him on the island of Réunion. By the by, Albius' method was almost stolen from him when a French botanist claimed that he had come up with it and taught it to Albius. Also, in the beginning of the 20th century, French newspapers claimed Albius was white. Neither of those are true. So vanilla orchards sprung up in several places in the world, but they grew particularly well in Madagascar, which today produces 80% of the world's vanilla. As vanilla became more popular, the government controlled the market and prices were pretty stable around $50 to $60 per kilo. Then in the 1980s, when artificial flavoring became more popular, the prices fell to about $20 to $30 per kilo. This, plus pressure from international spice trading companies, caused the government to retreat from the vanilla market. Now, given that vanilla can be produced as a cash crop, why is it so expensive? At my local supermarket, the pods go for €5. For one, vanilla is extremely labor and time intensive. After an orchid is planted, it's not going to start producing for 2 to 3 years. Then every orchid is hand-pollinated. The orchids open up in the morning, and unless pollinated, will fall off at night, which means that you have a very small window in which to pollinate them all. Then, once the pods are ripe, there follows a 4-stage curing process of killing, sweating, drying, and conditioning. Killing is usually done with either hot water, heating them up in the oven, or freezing them. Then the pods are wrapped in dark fabric and left out in the sun to basically sweat out moisture. After that, they are placed on racks and put out in the morning sun and taken into the shade in the afternoon when the really hot, intense sun comes up. That takes about 3 months. After that, they are placed in a container for 4 to 6 months, which is called the conditioning. Only then is the vanilla ready for use. So all in all, from planting an orchid to the first fully cured vanilla pod might be 4 to 5 years. Also, every step of that has to be done by hand. From the planting to the pollinating to the curing, it's hundreds and hundreds of man-hours. Then, on April 2nd, 2000, Cyclone Huda hit Madagascar. 10 people lost their lives. By estimates, around 100,000 homes were lost, and the vanilla fields were just flattened. This took out nearly 80% of the world's supply of vanilla. Prices shot up and have been incredibly unstable since. Even as Madagascar vanilla is coming back on the markets, prices haven't really stabilized. Independently of all that, vanilla, real vanilla, started to become more popular again in Europe and the US, with the rise of whole foods diet and a sort of distrust of artificial flavorings. This led to Nestle, one of the world's largest food producers, to declare in 2015 that it would only use natural vanilla in its products. The effect of that declaration is, from what I've seen, kind of disputed, but in 2015 vanilla reached its highest price of $620 per kilo. So why Madagascar? I mean, yes, vanilla grows incredibly well there, but other places could grow it. But vanilla growing is incredibly labor intensive. And Madagascar has very low labor costs. The hourly minimum wage for farm workers is 18 cents per hour. In other countries where vanilla could grow, labor prices are 10 to 15 times as high. So in years where vanilla prices are low, that would cause a loss. And nobody wants to invest in that, basically. Now, given that Madagascar has a near monopoly on the supply of vanilla, and they have established farms and farmers who know what they're doing, why aren't the prices more stable? The thing is, vanilla is in a lot of products, from food to drinks to perfumes to laundry detergents. And these companies need the vanilla. Even when the vanilla harvest is bad, Coca-Cola can't just change its recipe. So even, or rather especially, in years when the harvest is bad, vanilla reaches extremely high prices. Companies get kind of nervous and they just buy any vanilla that they can get their hands on. So in years where the harvest is bad, the prices are higher. This leads to this odd situation where farmers, in order to supply that demand, harvest the pods earlier when they are still smaller and of lower quality, and actually achieve higher prices than the later ripe vanilla. This is called a perverse incentive, a lower quality product that reaches a higher price. Now, what has all this done for Madagascar? The assumption would be that since they have a monopoly on an incredibly sought after commodity, that'd be wealth and happiness for everyone, surely. But the roads in the north of the country where vanilla is produced aren't even paved. The price for cured vanilla, as you see it in your supermarket, is between $400 and $600 per kilo. The price for the green vanilla pods that the farmers harvest is between $50 to $60. So middlemen and spice trading companies make most of the profits. Also, depending on the price of vanilla, the region is awash with cash one year and nearly broke the next. There are no banks in the north of the country because it makes no economic sense to start a branch in a place where, you might not have customers for a year. So, no wealth. What about happiness? Because vanilla is so valuable, theft is a common problem. Farmers have to sleep outside with machetes at their side to protect their harvest. Also, according to Danwatch, an estimated 80% of vanilla might be produced with child labor at some point in the process. Children have smaller hands and a lighter touch, which means they do less damage to the plants. To sum up this slightly disjointed and kind of rambly video, vanilla is expensive, but the people who produce it are still poor. Consumers get worse product for a higher price, and that product might be produced with child labor. The complexity and opacity of the international food system makes it difficult, if not actually impossible, to make an informed choice about our buying options. To quote Lisa Simpson, the whole damn system is wrong. Of course, Madagascar farmers are trying to organize to make sure that a little bit more of the money that is produced with their labor stays on the island. For example, some have started branding their vanilla pods so that there's some way that we can, follow where these pods came from. Because before, a vanilla pod is a vanilla pod, and once you throw them all together, there is no way to tell which have been produced with child labor and which have been produced without. So now farmers have started branding their vanilla pods, and I looked at the vanilla pods that I have in my kitchen, and it actually has a brand on it. Wait a second. Oop. Where is it? There. I think it says JZE. I'm gonna zoom in on that later. Also, regional markets where farmers bring their products to the spice traders, there is collective bargaining. Basically, farmers together decide on a price, and then the merchants make their counteroffer, and so on until one price is decided for all the product, and then each farmer takes home their share. But basically, spice traders have sent in spoilers. They have gone into those markets and basically overbid everyone. I said, the decided price is, for example, $50, and they went in and said, I've got a European company, they need vanilla, I'm gonna buy any price, I'm gonna pay $60, I'm gonna take everything. And then, obviously the farmers say, yeah, we're gonna sell it for you for 60, of course. So the spoiler basically says, oh, that's wonderful, I'm just gonna go into town and get the money, and then they never come back. So in conclusion, organize,